I'm Christine Chupek.
I'm Eloise De Leon, and this is The Heart Glow. Today's guest is Christine Chupek, co-host of this podcast, The Heart Glow. She lives in the Bay Area of California. She is a marketing specialist with 2 decades of expertise in the field and is a hula dancer, a yoga instructor, Ayurvedic practitioner, wellness coach, and an intuitive reader. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited.
So I know that you have a lot of different hats that you wear in the world, and some of them are business and some of them are spiritual or wellness oriented. And I'm also very much interested in your childhood. Where would you like to start in telling us about you?
Yeah, I think let's start with where I grew up and kind of how I grew up and how I got here, because I do feel like sometimes things become serendipitous with what you do follow, what paths you follow in life. And I think about growing up in Los Angeles, of a bicultural family. My mom is from El Salvador. My dad is from the Midwest, and that's where they met, in the great city of Los Angeles in the 70s. And growing up in such a big city, and also sometimes a little scary city at times in the 80s, and a lot of things going on culturally and in the city of itself, as its growth started during that time. And so I do feel like it was a really good time and a wonderful time to be there around family and being in such a wonderful place where art was always around, and culture too. And so I really do think that's a lot of what framed my childhood. And even as a young child, I start to think about, like, why was I interested in marketing? How did I get into it? Why was I even there? And I think back, as I used to be a toy tester for Mattel toys as a little child. And we had a cousin that worked there and signed us up for a program when we were 5 or 6 years old, and they would bring us in. We'd get to bring a friend, and we would play in a room of toys. And I clearly remember people bringing us out after, going, "What toy did you like? What did you play with? Why did you like this toy?" And then maybe asking us some other random questions about, what's your favorite candy bar? What do you eat? What cereal do you like? And then they would give us a toy as a reward after we finished our focus group. And I had no idea until later that I was like, oh, this is probably why I was so curious about marketing. Was just, it seemed like it was fun. It seemed like there was business related to it, and I got to play with toys. It was just pretty fun. And so my sister and I, at a young age, were exposed to marketing firsthand. And for a very large company, Mattel, going to play with Barbies and Hot Wheels and all those fun different things at the time. And so had no idea until looking back, going, oh, I think that's probably why I was so curious about what marketing was, and going into it, just always knowing that I would be in some way either business minded or working in that realm of TV or music or something to that effect. And so once I went into school, it was really very clear to me that I was like, okay, I'm going to just go down this path and see where it takes me, not knowing anything else about what it actually meant. And so it really afforded me ways to just go, oh, I'm going to try this out, I'm going to try that out, and just saying yes to whatever was in front of me at the time. So it was pretty fun to think about, like, oh, that's where those roots were. The seeds were deeply rooted at an early age. Like, I just want to play with toys. It was fun as a kid.
And when we had Jonathan Quant on as our first guest, you mentioned that you did hula with him at a young age. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, the other fun thing is I was exposed to hula and the Hawaiian culture at a very young age. So probably about 11 or 12 years old, at the elementary school that we were at in Culver City. And so talk about another culture being introduced in in that city where I had no idea what it was about. We just wanted to dance. And the performing arts program at the school, the teacher at the time was like, well, I'm just going to teach you hula. And then it never stopped. And so fast forward 30 years later, we are still very much ingrained within the Hawaiian culture, hula practices, have a large school of hula brothers and sisters that has grown to about 30 or 40 people, and where we perform shows every few years, obviously not in the pandemic, but hopefully we'll have another show soon, where we're out just sharing the culture, sharing the practices, and really just being part of another culture completely out of respect and just love of what we do, and sharing that knowledge in some way. And so I think that part was pretty cool growing up, to be able to say like, hey, not only did I have a family growing up Salvadoran, bicultural, with not much of my dad's family, they were all on the East Coast and Midwest, but really with a very strong root in what it was to be accepting and open to other cultures. And so it was pretty fun to be, and is still fun to be, part of this great just exposure of what it meant to be sharing a true love collectively for a culture, in the Hawaiian culture. So it's been pretty fantastic, and shaped a lot of, I would say, my youth, shaped a lot of what it meant, and reinforced that. I mean, I think we already had that with that sense of family with my mom's side of the family, of just spending a lot of time together. But then I also had another family and support system that I spent the rest of that time with, growing up through elementary, high school, and even college, and now. So it's pretty cool to have that connection with this group of people, but more importantly, family.
Beautiful. And the tradition that that you were steeped in as you were learning hula, how do you think that has shaped you in life?
Yeah, I think really also curiosity. I think that's kind of a big theme throughout my life, was seeking of more knowledge, of like, okay, what else? Like, what else is there? What else do I have to learn? What else can I learn about? And so I think being steeped in that culture and many cultures made me really curious about, what does that mean? What do I like? Who am I? Where do I belong? What value can I bring? And it was very interesting in that sense. I think the curiosity piece, and that's what our hula school is named after, Hula School of the Seekers of Knowledge, because we're not blood quantum Hawaiian, but deeply rooted in that culture, and passing down those traditions and knowledge to others. And so it's pretty, I'd say it definitely shaped me in the sense of like, that's how I approach everything now. It's like with a curious mind of, and I think what led me into marketing and being creative, and being exposed to creativity at a young age, of like, oh yeah, this is a dance, or this is we got to come up with a poster or a creative way in which to communicate what we're doing. Especially sometimes, like, you think about what people believe hula to be is grass skirts and coconuts, and oh, here, a Mai Tai, how much deeper that is, and what that story is that we were telling was to get beyond some of those cultural stereotypes. And so it was pretty fun to be a part, even though we didn't know we were doing that at a young age. I think as we got older, we understood, okay, this is what we've been up against. And most times people are like, oh, so is that Tahitian dancing? Is just understanding kind of where we sat in sharing with others that information, but also entertaining too. So there was a beautiful joy that we could bring to people and to their parties, and just that to me is what drew me from the get-go, is just like how much joy just dancing hula brought me.
So I met you, maybe, I don't know if you've counted, but maybe like 17 years ago, something like that.
Yes, I want to say it was probably around 2004 or
Oh, okay.
2005.
All
Yeah,
right.
so close to that close to
And
that time in
and
San Diego.
you were already, I mean, we came
Hmm.
together because of
Hmm.
healing work, so
Yes,
you already had an interest in that. And
yes,
you were also already working in marketing, right?
yes. Yeah, it's I think I was probably in my second or third job at that point in marketing, and at that time I was with a Hispanic marketing agency. Before that I was with a company called LG, which is a very large company too, with mobile phones. And before that, I was interning at a different company. So by that point, I felt at 24, 25, I was a little bit of a veteran already within marketing and at an agency working within sports and entertainment. And so it was within San Diego. I was working, the name of the company was Latino Sports and Entertainment Marketing. So we were working with very large brands, but really pulling together these large sporting events mostly, as well as working within music and with artists. I remember working with Jenny Rivera too before she passed in Sacramento, and pulling together a large scale concert there. And so it was at 25, a very stressful time, and really didn't know what I was doing, but had a very large team of talented people who were just excited about sports, who were excited about music, and really wanted to pull together these large scale events. And a few were televised too, and so they were pretty cool to learn as I went. It was trial by fire, I will say. And I think it was at that time that I knew I needed help to manage my stress. I needed help to understand, like, okay, yeah, this is not normal, waking up in the middle of the night and having panic attacks. And it's really at the time when I reached out, and it was through a mutual friend that recommended meeting with you and giving me some tools to help me get through that very stressful time. It was exciting. I sometimes say it was like the best of times and it was the worst of times. Uh, but it was great to see what I was capable of at that time and understand, like, okay, all right, well, I'll just kind of jump in and see what happens next. But I really needed that support at the time because I really didn't have it. I didn't have a spiritual practice. I didn't have the tools to understand, like, okay, yeah, this isn't normal. I really need some help. And so it's really when I started to get exposed to yoga and to energy healing and to meditation and understanding these other layers that really were nourishing my soul outside of just 100% focus on work. And that's where you came in to help me tremendously shift things.
And you continued on both of those paths of
Yeah,
your marketing work and I mean, being such an expert in your field, but also as a healer in your own right, a healing practitioner in your own right.
yeah,
So what would you like to tell us about first? Because you have a lot to share in terms of Ayurveda practice as a
yes.
practitioner, a yoga
Hmm.
teacher or
Yes, yeah.
wellness guide,
Mhm.
an intuitive reader, and I admit I have taken advantage of your services there. And what else? Like, tell us more.
It's interesting. I think at a young age too, I knew that there were some abilities or things that were always there. I just never put too much attention to it. Like things would happen and I'd go, oh, I think I saw a spirit or something down the hall. And my sister and I would talk about it. We're like, yeah, we did see the same thing. And then fast forward, I put it in a box somewhere and go, okay, that was a nice experience. I'm going to put this away. But not knowing that through my life, I was very sensitive in work situations around other people. And I knew that there was something there, and I couldn't quite explain what it was, why I was so sensitive, why I could, I guess I was intuitive about a lot of different things that I couldn't explain. So I just put it on the side and I just said, okay, you're good there. I'm not going to explain it, until I was around 25 and things kind of, Pima Chodron has a great book, When Things Fell Apart, and they really did. But it was a perfect opportunity to bring them back together. And so again, that curiosity sprung in of like, okay, well, if this is working for me, then what's next? What does this mean? And so I continued down the marketing path, and you helped me tremendously with understanding how to manifest, what that meant, and turn it
Can you teach it
around.
to me again?
It was such an amazing thing, where I think there was a laughing meditation that you taught me, that I would wake up at like 5 a.m. and start to do that practice. And I was doing that every day, and knowing that I needed a change, because at the time I was like, okay, I'm a little burnt. I want something else. And I always knew I wanted to work at the Walt Disney Company. And so I I wrote it down. I said, I want to work at Disney. Had no idea that that was going to happen or how it was going to happen. And I actually put it underneath my mattress and I forgot about it. And so living in San Diego, had no idea what was going to happen. And I was really busy with everything that I was doing for the agency. And I was traveling every week to a new city and working all these different types of events. And then I was at an event in North Carolina, and I had like 2 walkie-talkies, my backpack, it was 100 degrees. And we had people, it was a soccer game that we brought these teams from Mexico, and they were playing in Raleigh. And we had like 10,000 people in a stadium. People were climbing the trees to see this game because they never had received this Mexican club team in their hometown. And so they were so excited to be there, and completely sold out. And I remember getting a call, and I was like, hello. And of course I had like 2 phones, and it was like chaos at the time. And they said, oh, this is a recruiter from the Walt Disney Company. We'd like to ask you a few questions. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, I have no idea. I go, can I get your number? I wrote it down on a piece of receipt or like my clipboard. And I just was like, I gotta go. And I said, I'm kind of in the middle of something. Unless you needed me at that event for something, then I have to go. And didn't even process it until like a week later when I came back and I was like cleaning through things, and I noticed this scribble, and I called the number and I was like, is this a joke? Because I have no idea what was happening. And it said, we found your resume on monster.com and we think you would be a great fit. We just need you to answer a few questions. They gave me a link. I went online, answered a few questions, and then a week later, a recruiter from the Disney Company called me. And it was the work that I had been doing in multicultural marketing, where not many people were doing that at the time, that Disney recruited me. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me that happened. And really, it was a manifestation of like letting go, the time of letting go, of really coming back to what it felt like to be just what now I know sattvic in yoga, and what they teach the sutras is like at neutral state. And when you feel at that neutral state is when things can start to manifest, and when you can start to see it and not be so focused on the things that were not in your life. That is the moment then things shifted. And I remember pulling that out going, oh my gosh, that I cannot believe that that's what I had written down, probably like maybe a year earlier. And it was pretty fantastic to get that. And fast forward, it was like a 5-month process of interviewing back and forth, and ultimately got the job at the Walt Disney Company. But it was pretty amazing. It was the job that I always, and the brand I always wanted to work at. And so it was pretty serendipitous is the right word to be able to say that it happened exactly at the right time.
I seem to remember you telling me at one point many years ago about some special garment that you wore.
Yes. Oh
Sorry.
my gosh. It was so funny. I think it was my acupuncturist at the time where I think she's the one that probably mentioned something to me. And we were joking because I was like, this is the final interview. And it was a 5-hour interview that I was going to meet with all these different executives and the team. And she's like, oh, it'd be funny if you wrote something funny on your underwear to hopefully help you with the nervousness. And I thought, what a great idea. So I actually drew a Mickey on my underwear, like at the time. And anytime I felt nervous, I could just think of the underwear. And I kind of had a little chuckle of like, no matter what, I got this far. And how cool would that be that I've just, that I came through this process, a company that I had applied for, never heard from, and then out of the blue, they called me. And so I guess not out of the blue, it was something that I really did manifest, and it was the right
Yeah.
time and having the right experience and knowledge for what happens is like it's preparing you. I think Oprah has that quote around luck, but it really is your life preparing you for that next phase. So I really did see everything that I did, even if it was like a U-turn or taking a different path, was preparing me for the next opportunity. And so I spent 7 years at the Walt Disney Company doing strategy work for Disneyland, working for the destination, so cruise line, helping with Aulani launch in Hawaii, Walt Disney World, and Adventures by Disney, working across teams, working international too with the teams in Tokyo, Disney, at Paris, and really working on so many different types of fun projects that I think the first 6 months I was there, I remember being there late and I saw Mickey walking down the hall. And I was like, pinch myself. I'm like, I think I just saw me. I called my mom, Mickey Mouse. I just saw Mickey Mouse walking down the hall. You can't make this stuff up. And so it was, I hate to be very cliche, but it was magical. It prepared me. And I think it marked me. It was a change in my career where I got to see things in a way that was very much a Disney marketer and understand the history of that company, the history of Walt and what he built from just an idea of wanting to build a place that was safe, that he could spend with his 2 daughters. Clean, safe place that I could have fun in and interact with my children. And that's how Disneyland started. So over 100 years of history with that company. And that's where it taught me about creativity. It taught me about innovation. It taught me about blue sky thinking and understanding what if, like, how do we talk about things in an expansive way where this is a place where things we could do and solve for things that we were seeing that we could address. But it was really about listening to customers, listening to watching people, being in the parks. Like a lot of time they encouraged us to be in the park, take the different roles. Like I was on Main Street dipping waffle cones at Gibson Girl during the holidays. I was doing parade traffic. I was doing pat downs that they don't tell you about, but all these different roles within the park to understand what it took to make that place run. And at every touch point, how your attitude, your interaction was a micro moment in somebody's visit, and like how you could create those moments of magic for the customers. And so it was really fascinating to me to kind of learn as much as I could there, and understand like that's where me as a marketer really got into the storytelling. It's like, what story are we telling? What is that promise we're making to customers? What is it that we're learning about them that meets this need? How are we creating a space in which they will have memories that will live a lifetime, not just in photographs, but with their children the first time that they come to Disneyland? And so it was pretty special, a special time, a lot of smart people, a lot of great opportunity. And probably one of the first times where I was able to be exposed to strong leaders and people who were advocates for me. I think I had had it a little bit here and there in the few other jobs that I was in, but it was truly where I had an advocacy within the company to say, like, here, I'm going to take you. This is where we're going to push you to this and push you to that. And it was pretty fantastic to see that and get a best in class example of strong female leaders who could still live with integrity, even within the politics of a big corporation. And so it was really important for me to have that as an example. And it was still, before I was 30 years old. I think I started there when I was like 27 years old. So kind of crazy to think about it. And I look back with such fondness, even though I did work a lot and was exposed to a lot of great things. Just, yeah, it was a good time to be there for 7 years about. Can
you explain, you mentioned blue sky thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, please?
Yeah. So I think, well, as it was taught to us, it was, how do you think about an idea that has no limit? So if you remove cost, if you remove the can't be done, or it's too difficult, it's how do you think of things in this way that, what if we could do this? What if, we could change things a little bit? What would that look like? And it was a lot of visioning. It was things that I was already starting to be exposed to, vision boards and manifestation, and like all of this started to cross. And I was like, oh, so it's a vision board, or it's we're doing positive thinking around a lot of these events, and really trying to say, like, what if we could do this and not have any negativity in there? So it was a yes and versus a no but conversation. So I think that's where these came in. And we were taught really to be thinking about that. Anytime we were working on any new project, new campaign, but that was very much a Disney-esque idea around how do we think about creativity and innovation and what that looks like and what that means for customers. And so a lot of it was going into meeting with groups who were from different areas. So people who worked in foods, people who worked in operations, the marketing teams, engineers, people who decorated and did the decor for Disneyland. And we would all come together to bring a different perspective, a different just a viewpoint of how we could brainstorm. And it was just a way in which we could brainstorm new ideas. But we would think about it as like, oh, blue sky, what if? And not get caught up with, oh, we already did that and it didn't work, or we did that 10 years ago and it didn't work, or we don't have enough money to do that, or how could we do that? And it really was, we set very good parameters and ground rules around how we brainstormed. And so I think for anybody who's in marketing or trying to think of a new idea, whether you're a small business, medium business, it's about like, what are the known facts and listing those out. Like, I know I have a business selling jewelry. I sell this kind of jewelry. Here are who my customers are. I sell online. I sell here. And then taking those as leaps into, well, what if I could sell my jewelry online? What if I could collaborate with my favorite artist and create a limited edition bracelet? What if I could do this? And so without limiting yourself in any sort of just negative thought process, is how do you think about this blue sky as a limit? And then you can scale from there. I think a lot of businesses get caught up with, I don't have enough money, I don't have the resources. But a lot of what I did was, and a lot of what we did even at Disney, was work with other teams and departments, and it didn't cost us. It was like, oh, there's a TV show going on at ABC. What if we actually filmed at Disneyland an episode. Oh, for the new whatever attraction. Great. What if we used, and it was like leveraging the wonderful stories and IP, the intellectual property that we had to create something bigger and more integrated. And I would say that's probably the biggest thing for marketers too, is how do you leap into that, but using clues, using insights about your current customers and solving whatever problem it is that you're trying to solve. So it could be, I just want to sell more. How do I sell more? How do I become more exposed to other people? How do I get my word out? How do I show that I'm really into and passionate about climate change? It really is going to be dependent person to person, brand to brand. And I think that, once I left Disney, it was a difficult decision because I could have been there. I could still be there. And I really was very looking at like what was next. I needed to understand like, hey, I've done this. Now I understand this model. How do I take it to the next thing? And from there, I started to work with other marketing agencies and other teams to kind of take that next step and provide other brands different solutions and models of how they could reach their customers. And so I did start my own business shortly after I left Disney. I did do some things working with agencies in the music industry, with Coachella and with ultra music festivals and bringing music artists together, which is pretty fun and exciting. And then also working with teachers at Lakeshore for a little bit. So I went from industry to industry because I was really fascinated around what makes a customer tick. What do I need to learn about this customer? How is this industry different than the next? And so it was that curiosity that I took and those skills that I took from Disney around creativity and innovation to the next job, which made me a much stronger marketer and really understood like the principles of, okay, what story do we have to tell? But also, what are we telling that's authentic and not trying to be so like, let's push this product. No, it was more about how do we understand that this product will help in your child's development and give them an opportunity to explore and be curious around engineering and around art and around math. And it was that shift in people's thinking to tell them like, hey, I know you're into sales and you like to sell this, but here is the marketing piece. It's not just glitter, as I've heard some people tell me, like, oh, marketing's glitter. You do fun, exciting things. Yes, but we also use a lot of data and analytics and insights to help inform what those strategies are. And I always tell people like, have a strategy in place. That is like the biggest piece of thinking of where you're going to go next, is really doing the thinking part first and homework, research, and doing that before you leap into what's next and that next idea. So really having a good solid understanding and talking to people and doing your focus groups. And then I came back to that time at Mattel where I was like, I'm hosting focus groups and I'm asking people about brands and I'm asking people, what do you like? What don't you like? How is this helping you? How is this not? What would make it better?
Funny.
And it was doing the same thing. And I was like, oh, this is a little weird, but cool at the same time that this has gone full circle. And though that time and opportunity gave me the time, and I was starting to work at home because it was like remote working back in probably 2014, 15, it allowed me an opportunity to go do my yoga teacher training and to learn about the Yoga Sutras and learn about how to care for myself. And I was exposed to Ayurveda at that point. And I was really trying to figure out like, oh, it's a sister science to yoga, but it really is very practical in the sense that it was about eating seasonally and eating for your specific type, that it wasn't a one size fits all model, which also wasn't marketing. It was like, it's not a one size fits all model. And so I could see the parallels as I was going through, going, oh, I guess I'm a marketer. I'm a yes and. I'm a yes, I'm this, and I can be this at the same time. And so I could be in a corporate setting or in a marketing business setting, but I could also have my spiritual life and really learn and be curious about, what does this herb do for me? Or, oh, I'm having digestion issues. What does that look like? Oh, this is what I could do to treat myself. Let's see if this works. And so I was really trying to, I got really into the spirituality piece, but also the practicality piece around, this makes sense. Eat when my digestion's the strongest at noon. That makes sense. Change my foods when it was winter. And I needed different types of nutrients during that time than I did in the summer. And so that started my training. And I met another teacher, and met many teachers along the way, but I met Robert Bernberg and Eleni Trisakis, and they exposed me out of Silver Lake. They started to teach me out of their home, and that felt so good. Just in Los Angeles, teaching out of their home, and it was just a fun sense of community again. So I had my hula community, I had my marketing community, I had my yogic community, but then I had this community of healers who were really of all walks of life, of all ages. And it was a good example to me to see, wow, they're a husband and wife team. That's a good example for me of what a healthy relationship looks like. Oh, that's a good example of what it means to age gracefully. Oh, this is a good example of what it means to live your yoga in practice. And so learning those things was what it needed to happen, right? But I was so in love of just like, I show up to their house. I'm there all day learning about Yoga Sutras, about Ayurveda. I'm learning different cooking recipes. I'm learning how to make tinctures. I'm learning how to make different tea infusions and what they do and how they can help. And I was like, gosh, this is just so wonderful. Like I was so excited, and it was a passion for me to like, how come I never learned about this? Like, how come no one teaches this? How come doctors don't tell you? Like, why? It was a very much a wisdom-based, it is a wisdom-based medicine. And it's also, it's not disease-based, it's a wellness-based. So it's like where in Western medicine, they treat the dis-ease, or here's a pill, here's surgery, here's this. Ayurveda is coming into what is the root of that disease? Where does it sit? Does it have an emotional tie? And bringing in very proactive methods of Ayurveda to me is like, how do I live a long, healthy life proactively? How do I listen to my body and know what it's doing and treat it at that point before it gets into a disease or overflow state? And so with those different dosha types and understanding what that meant, I was like, this is so cool. I could be my own healer and my own test subject that I used to use in marketing. Like I'm my focus group of one, and I could try it. I'm like, let's try this. Here's the control group. Let's try it again. Let's see if this worked. Oh, do I have less pain today? Did that help that headache? It's been pretty cool to be able to do that and help, but it is a very involved process. And so, I started really down that hole because I was having some health challenges and health issues. And I go, there's gotta be another way. These doctors keep feeding me pills. I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like intuitively, I'm like, that it doesn't make sense. And it's an energetic based medicine. So it was building upon like, oh, meditation, oh, yoga, oh, pranayama and breath work, oh, visualization, faster EFT. And it just all started to kind of, the pieces started to come together. And I was all, oh, okay. So this is what my life is going. I have a vision of my life of what 2.0 is going to look like. And it will still have probably some version of marketing, but all these pieces that I've been learning along the way and the stories that now I have to tell and can tell, to help others and guide others in that way. Because I do think that we are in a time where people want to become empowered and become the hero of their own life and their own story. And that's what a lot of these spiritual practices and tools are able to help with, is how do I become the hero of my story and really become empowered to say, oh, I don't need to listen to anybody else with certain things. I know when I'm not feeling well. I know what I can do to bring it back to a certain state. And so, and then also having the right teachers and guides too, right? Like, I think that's really important to, in a society filled with social media, influencers, and there's a lot of noise right now. And some of it is marketing too. Like, how to, there's so much going on, but knowing that it's not a one size fits all model, that you are unique, your challenges are unique, and you need tools and remedies that are individualized to what's going on. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And I had, again, great teachers around that. And it's kind of continued from there, and just creating a community of people who are all like-minded in that way. And so it's been fantastic. We also still meet, like we have a weekly group, our Sangha group. And we've actually been talking about death and what's next for that next phase of life, that third stage or third act of life. And it's been really beautiful to come through some of these teachings and yogic teachings and sutras and all these wonderful authors and teachers that exist. They're all onto the same thing. And I go, we're all speaking the same thing at the end of the day. So it's been pretty cool. And to see my career kind of go from that to on my own. And then.
And you're also a consultant for Google, right?
I am. And so then I got way into like data. And it was like the part of my career that I was like, I really want to be focused in on the data and insights. And I worked for a real estate investment firm before I was doing consulting work for Google and helping build the infrastructure of what it meant to be a digital marketer. And this was right before the pandemic hit. So imagine, I do feel like some of it was intuitive. I moved to San Francisco, which I never thought I would move from Southern California, moved up here because I said, I have to move. And there was no other reason. I was like, I'm going to move. Happened within months. I got a call, worked with this company for about 3, almost 4 years. Pandemic hit, and I was working on websites and SEO marketing and social and building these plans, and realized like, oh, wow, we were all going to be working from home. And thank goodness we had built the infrastructure in place on the marketing side to pull off these digital marketing campaigns that we had already done the groundwork for. And so with that said, then I was like, okay, I think it's time, and got some consultancy work for Google Ads. So it's pretty fun that I work a lot of strategy work, digital marketing work, but working with small and medium businesses to help them meet their business objectives and goals. So there's a lot of suite of Google products that help that. And it's been pretty cool, very different too than what I had, but also some of it similar in the way that I worked at Disney. A lot of strategy work, a lot of understanding, like, who's the customer? What is the value that this brings? What is the key benefit of this product? And how are we communicating that in a way that's digestible? Bringing it back to Ayurveda. What is digestible at the end of the day? And it's been fantastic too. A very different industry, being in technology and understanding all the moving parts. And I've been really thankful. I'm very thankful about the career and how it's kind of gone through all these different ebbs and flows, and working with small businesses, being able to own my own business for a while, and doing the same sort of consultancy work to help small companies, startups, really understand and look at marketing in a fun way. and also scientific way too, because I think not everybody thinks of marketing as, oh, there's a science behind it. There absolutely is a science and a data that will show what's happening with your customers. And so that's been pretty cool to see. Just like Ayurveda, just like yoga, how do you know it's working? Your relationships are getting better. How do you know, Ayurveda is working? Your digestion is working better. Your sleep is better. Your clarity of thinking is better. And so there are ways in which to use it. And I feel like all of it's been tools along the way. And yeah, just very excited to share about all of these different things that I've learned about and continue to geek out about in general, going, ooh, what's next? What about this? So, oh yeah, let's see. I think next path is going into herbalism too, just because I'm fascinated with herbs and I already play around with herbs as a whole. And yeah, it's just exciting work, fun stuff. And it's what gets me going through the day.
So do you take on any personal clients? I mean, clients for marketing or for your work with Ayurvedic medicine
I do.
or
And
yoga?
yeah, I do. And right now it's been a lot of word of mouth. And so, through people who I've known, I haven't proactively started to market myself. I think that's kind of the next phase of carving out some time for myself so I can build my own website again and have that both in the marketing space as well as in the Ayurvedic yogic space. But if friends and colleagues refer to me, then I absolutely help both within marketing strategy, helping with ideas, trying to figure out like, okay, what is it that I need to do next? And some of it's business consulting / marketing consulting. And then some of it is like, oh, I need a reading just because I know you can do that. Or, hey, can you help me with Ayurveda and a plan for me? And that's a little bit more involved, of course. And, but it really is just word of mouth at this point, but definitely accepting that. And I feel like having the right invitations too. I think working with the right people is really important. I've learned through my marketing career and with being in the space of healing. I think I understand sometimes people are looking for what can work now. And sometimes you really need to put that work in to say, well, that I'm not responsible for what maybe the disease or what's happened at that point, but now taking that time to nurture yourself is so important and sometimes takes a little bit more time for that and carving that out versus being a quick fix. But once you know that, it's like, how can you live a long, healthy life knowing that now you are educated and empowered to take care of yourself and nurture yourself on multiple levels? And food is incredibly powerful as medicine. Our ancestors did that. Our ancestors knew about that. And it's really bringing that wisdom medicine back to the masses again, I think, and just really going like, this is where things are headed. Like we are in a state of really, there's only so much Western medicine can do for you. How can I live a long, healthy life in the meantime? And even work with some of the things that you may have. You may have diabetes, you may have hypertension, you may just be feeling lethargic. Like there are things you can do with both food and understanding what those pillars are for being healthy and the healthiest version and the strongest version of yourself without taking necessarily a pill. And sometimes you have to, which is okay. And Ayurveda works with that too. So yes, and it's very much how do you think about your life on all levels? And so I do think it's really important until you get to that point of overflow. And I'm able to recognize that now. Whereas I was like, oh yeah, back in that time, I really wasn't sleeping. I really was high stress. There were all sorts of things going on. And had I was able to pivot or have some of those tools to help me, I think would have eased it. I think now I know that, and I continue to use a lot of what I've learned daily. So it's a fun practice, and it's really just about like, hey, yeah, I can do this, and I can teach others about this, and why not? Because I do feel like it's needed, and I think we're getting to that point where
excuse me,
people can do that in an easy, not easy way, but like simple things that can be done.
Okay, I had to stop for a moment because I was coughing. Sorry about that.
Good.
But I wanted to ask you, I mean,
Okay.
everything that you've been saying has been so interesting, and offline, I'm going to ask you a bunch more questions.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to ask you, why did you say yes to doing the Heart Glow, this show?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it's been interesting. I've been open to saying yes with invitations, and it seemed pretty cool, and there was no hesitation on it. So I feel like it's been part of it. And I feel like too, as being a marketer, part of what I originally studied too was a bit about, it was broadcast journalism, and I think I had that a little bit in the back of my head. I was a newscaster for UCSD television.
How are you kidding?
Yeah, for a couple of years too. I'm sure I have them somewhere on VHS somewhere, some of my reporting, but I think that was part of it. But I really just wanted to bring stories about people. I think that's ultimately, it's like a lot of the podcasts you hear are around like famous people and celebrities and, these folks who've made it, and not talking about the people who are actually living in it and doing wonderful things, but not necessarily, making, millions and on Oprah. And so I think that piece is like, there are many stories to tell about good things that people are doing and messages that need to be shared. And I think that just being able to do that and understanding like there's so many people doing such great things right now for the world, for each other, that it is a time coming out of COVID to understand like, hey, your story may not yet be written, and there's something else opening up for you. So I think that was a piece of it, and to get to work with you too. Like I feel like full circle. So my life has been a series of full circles, and so coming through that, these little dots and connecting those dots has been pretty cool.
Well, it's so fun to co-host with you.
Yeah,
And I loved all of our planning meetings. You really brought it. I loved it. So, and we're just at the beginning. So,
yes.
We have many, many more people lined up.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
thank you
definitely.
so much for being the
Thank
guest for
you.
today and telling your story. And I'm sure that you're going to have many, many, many more years of success and many more stories to tell.
Thank you, Louise.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.